A safecracker nicknamed Moth gets a life sentence and goes to hard labor for a murder he didn't commit. Movie name, Moth 2017. Show the channel some love by liking and subscribing to our channel. The story is set in Paris in 1931. A young burglar named Henri Charrier, who is nicknamed the Moth, breaks into a safe and escapes through a window after visiting a cabaret. In a separate room of the cabaret, a group of gangsters led by Castelli are waiting for him. Castelli gives a tip to a man in the room next door, who then betrays Moth by informing the gangsters that he handed Moth over to the police. The gangsters beat the man Roland Legrand, believing him to be the informer. Castelli invites Moth to watch as they punish the man, and warns him that the same fate awaits anyone who crosses their path. Moth gives the stolen diamond to Castelli, but reveals that he kept a couple of larger ones for himself in the courtyard of the establishment. Moth waits for his girlfriend to arrive and gives her a necklace, showing her the 3 diamonds he obtained during the mission. While they are kissing, a man comes into the yard and notices the necklace in the girl's hands. Waking up in the morning by the window with his girlfriend, she shares her dreams in which she wants to live in a house in the city. Moth says that it takes half a year to earn a carefree life, but the girl is offended because she doesn't want to wait so long. In the room, the police burst into the room and arrest Moth, accusing him of the murder of Roland, which Grand Henri ends up behind bars. He tells his girlfriend, who comes to see him, that he has begun to plot an escape because he is facing a life sentence for a crime that he did not commit. And then he asks her to forget about him for a while. An inmate in the cell gets acquainted with Moth and says that without money for freedom, you can't get out. During the examination by doctors, Moth draws the attention of the inmate to one of the prisoners named Louis Degas, declaring that he is a millionaire caught for producing counterfeit money. Everyone wants to rip open his belly to literally take over his money. The prison director said, "You will stay in South America until the end of your term. You will work for the benefit of French expansion because France abandoned them." On the way to the ship on which Moth will depart, he watches as a well-dressed man encourages Louis by promising him a speedy appeal, and a woman standing next to him declares her love. On board the ship, Moth quickly takes a corner hammock and asks him to look after the place. And he himself approaches the same millionaire Henri, offering him his security service in exchange for the money that he needs to escape. However, DK does not trust a new inmate and thinks that it is better for him to stay close to the guards at night while everyone is sleeping. Later in the night, Louis wakes up and sees how a young prisoner lying next to him is killed almost silently, cleaning his pockets. Moreover, one of the guards is immediately nearby and, sticking his hand through the bars, takes the key left next to the body of the murderer. Doug finds Moth in the morning and offers him any amount of money to help him escape to the island where they are being taken. Henri sets some conditions for him, but they turn out to be simple because Louis is sure that he will be at home by Christmas. At night, Moth knocks down a prisoner who was approaching the sleeping Louis, while the advantage is on the side of Henri. Henri asks Louis to immediately hand over the knife that flew out of the bars from the hands of the attacker. Frightened DGA is lost, but still manages to pick up the knife. Meanwhile, the big man throws himself off the Moth and, not realizing who attacked him, he starts beating everyone who gets caught. The guards turn on the gas and Henri manages to injure the violent prisoner. They send the so-called first class upon the arrival of the ship to the island. The prisoners go ashore and want to get into the infirmary at all costs. Vane wounds his leg and then deliberately falls down the stairs when descending from the ship. The prisoners enter the territory of the exile camp. The commandant in a white suit and white hat informs the prisoners that when they try to escape, the guards shoot to kill. And if someone still succeeds, they will die of starvation anyway in the thickets or in the sea from sharks. After one attempt to escape, the prisoner is sent to solitary confinement for 2 years. After the second attempt, 5 years of solitary confinement and then life sentences on the island of the devil for murder. The death penalty is threatened in the general barracks. Moth approaches the elder and asks who distributes the prisoners to work. The task is to get to the infirmary, and Moth sends the run to the toilet, which is located there. The prisoner's legs are chained to the floor at night. Shots are suddenly heard. His sister's husband was arrested. As a result, the Moth, Lewis, are sent to work on the zero route loading heavy stones into a cart. DG tries to take a break from work due to poor health. This is noticed by one strongly built prisoner named Celia, who demands Degas to work during the holidays. Lewis draws his wife, and Moth asks how much he would give for her being in Paris. Degas is ready to give everything he has, but the Moth makes him think by asking how much she would give for him. Prisoners in groups roll carts loaded with stones up the road or weave and demand harder to push them harder. Lewis tells the Moth that he has lost money. They throw themselves under the carts, and they all stop. The guard approaches him to find out what is the matter, after which the exhausted DK is loaded with a cart with stones. The labor stops for lunch, during which everyone is given bread. To the pilgrim, Daga discovers that the prisoner who lay down to rest nearby is dead and more strongly suggests that he make a fuss and pick up the ration of the deceased. Shocked, DK steps aside, and Moth gets to know each other more strongly, enlisting each other's company for a future escape. At this moment, Lewis approaches an aggressive prisoner demanding to give all the money. Butterfly immediately enters into a fight. However, the guards suddenly separate them. On their way, they meet a van filled with girls in revealing dresses. Catching the moment, Moth offers money to the van driver for help in escaping. He names the amount and says that there is a boat on the other side, and they will wake up on the island for 3 more days. About to run away with the money, Moth fights off the attackers with some effort and manages to leave together with Lewis before the guards run in. At night, the Breath tries to tell the Moth with regret that he did not expect so many hunters for his money. Afraid not to live to see the appeal, he asks to take him with him. In the morning, everyone builds prisoners on the square for public execution for murder. The guards bring the convict and the Moth recognizes him as the one who escaped earlier. At the end of the execution, the Moth, along with someone on him, is instructed to remove the body. Being outside the camp, accompanied by the guards, the strength to move on begins to beat him. The warden demands to get up, and at some point, the Moth cannot stand it, hits the guard on the head with a stone, and runs away into the jungle. After a long chase, the Moth manages to break away, and at night he gets to the owner of the boat. However, the guards were already waiting for him on the spot. After all, if he had money, the commandant would pay the owner of the boat twice as much as the Moth. They return the Moth to the camp and send him to solitary confinement for 2 years. It is forbidden to break the silence here. They are fed in solitary confinement in the form of soup, which Moth drinks in one gulp. The fact that from now on it will be like this every day, tears come out in his eyes, and he eats coconut with joy, realizing that this is the tricks of the DGA. The inspired Moth of Time does not waste in vain doing physical activity in his small cell. However, after some time, one of the guards intercepts the bucket. The commandant persistently interrogates Henri, trying to find out the sender and threatening to cut his ration in half if he continues to remain silent. After some time, the commandant again comes to the exhausted Moth and personally brings a bowl of soup with meat in order to find out, in exchange for it, the name of the sender of the coconut. The Moth remains adamant, and the commandant gives the order to keep him in the dark until the end of his term. Lying in a cell at night, desperate Moth tries to strangle himself and returns. That night, before his arrest, he sees a traveling circus clown running and, in the cell wall, he sees a safe that he can't figure out the code for. Again, on a Paris night, a clown with the words "This a good exit" and then a safe that opens itself, but inside it is empty. 2 years of imprisonment come to an end, and the Moth is pulled out of the cell of the DC. He managed to become the secretary of the commandant and ended up here. Turns out he is on appeal having problems. His wife married his lawyer Henri makes it clear that, in fact, he did not go crazy. This is only part of his plan. Daga happily announces that the Resurrection Commandant will be showing a film for local politicians. It will be very noisy and loud. Yes, and there will be much less security around the perimeter. The Moth remembers the village that once promised to get a boat, pretending to be a violent madman. Moth chases Doug away and gets his portion of sedative pills, which, of course, he does not drink. At night, after the warden makes his rounds, Moth chases him to the toilet room and watches. The warden harasses Danetz, named Red, but he rebuffs him when the warden leaves. The Moth offers the guy a place in the boat in exchange for him lying down the warden at a certain time on Sunday. The next day, he enters the infirmary in the village. He intentionally injured his finger. Loon's escape plan. Celia asks for half the amount for those who provide the fugitives with a boat. Degas does not trust him, but they simply have no choice. On the appointed evening on the square, they are watching a movie. Guess there is a bottle of vodka and pours sleeping substances into the drinks. Moth goes to the table with the guards. He offers to refresh their coffee. Under the pretext that this is a steward sent from the commandant, at this time, Moth attacks the warder outside strongly, as a result of which, due to noise, one of the guards decides to check the infirmary, but two, having risen, falls under the influence of sleeping substance. The trinity of fugitives descends to the remaining guards. Looking that DK is forced stuck on the square near the commandant, the prisoners understand that they came too early. Suddenly, heavy rain falls, everyone in a hurry leaves the site. The alarm goes off, the village offers to leave right now, the three of us, but the Moth does not agree to leave without Lewis. At the same moment, Dega comes running and reports that for now, there is no light. They can get through the observation tower from which he got the key when jumping down. DK injures his leg, and again offers to throw him in the dark thickets. Again, they stumble upon two men with weapons. These are the very owners of the boat demanding payment right here and now. Daga gives the money to the Moth and reports that these are the last ones. The Moth tells to keep quiet about it. Once in the open ocean, the Daga starts a skirmish with strength because of the trough that they got. They have to constantly scoop out water from the boat and tells the Moth more strongly that the boat will not withstand them all. Who is most likely to sink the boat in the village? Grabs a knife and wants to kill Yes. Magurat is overboard and tries to strangle. The Moth harder Daga grabs the fallen knife and gets rid of Say. The Moth wakes up, discovers that he is in a settlement among the natives. It turns out that they are in Colombia. The nun offers the Moth to wash and invites to pray. Henry finds DGA and tells him that they need to move on. However, Lewis breaks their persuasion because he initially did not believe in power. The Moth tells him that he is leaving with or without him. A happy mutare calls this place paradise, after which Henry says goodbye to him, leaves the village near the road. Moth watches the car moving towards the settlement without hesitation. Omri runs back to the village and grabs the DGA, tries to leave the side already runs. Mutates, but in front of them, they shoot him. After 5 years of imprisonment in solitary confinement, he is transported to the Devil's Island until the end of his life days. Moth arrives on a stone island on which there are no cells with bars and no guards. They are not here because it is impossible to get out on the island. He is immediately met by the DGA trying to feed his friend. Lewis tells that he went straight here. A little later, standing near the well, Moth sees the stairs leading on the observation deck, being on the edge of the cape. Yes, the gas declares that he knows what he thinks, that even if it doesn't miraculously break, the ocean still can't swim across. A bag of bottles. Lewis puts in one of them a piece of fabric from a prison uniform with a picture of a moth already on the edge of cape. DGA says that he must stay here just like the Moth must leave here. Omri, with tears in his eyes, hugs his friend, after which he throws the homemade fruit into the water and then stands down. Daga immediately runs to the edge of the cape and watches the water intently, and then hears the joyful cry of his friend from below. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the brief movie recap. Please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Do not forget to tell me a movie you really loved in your childhood and would love to see a recap on it. Have a blessed day.